This is Tech Tuesday, where we shine the spotlight on a trending theme in the world of technology and gain a better understanding of where trends are leading in the world of tech investment. This is Tech Tuesday, presented by the Canadian Securities Exchange.
Hi, everyone. This is James Black here from the Canadian Securities Exchange, welcoming you to another edition of Tech Tuesday. Today's session is another private company showcase focused on the topic of medical devices. We are pleased to have the following three presenters today: Erez Tetro from VVT Medical, Yotam Levin from NanoPass, and Brennan from Innovative Trauma Care. Our objective in running Tech Tuesday is twofold. First, for companies to gain visibility and traction on an accessible platform. And the second is to inform capital markets players and investors about these types of companies in the tech space, while also providing new knowledge of what is happening in the world of medical devices. Specifically, this week you will learn more about technologies in trauma treatment, aesthetics, and vaccine delivery. Please note, if you're having issues with today's broadcast, you're welcome to check out one of the many platforms where we broadcast, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe on whatever channel you are viewing on today as well. And note our disclaimer: this presentation is for information purposes only and is not a solicitation to make an investment in either shares or debt, or to buy or sell stock. We make no representation about any of these companies. If you're interested in the investor pitch, please connect with the companies directly in order to get detailed information. Also note that today's presentations do contain some graphic imagery. Albeit medical in nature, you have been warned. Each company will have a 7-minute presentation. After all companies have presented, we will move to a Q&A with special guest moderator, Mark Francis. So without further ado, let me welcome our first speaker of the session, Mr. Erez Tetro, CEO of VVT Medical. Erez is an experienced executive with over 16 years working in the healthcare industry who has performed a variety of management positions with increasing responsibilities. Prior to VVT Medical, Erez held positions in startups and J&J's Ethicon division, specializing in surgical technologies and solutions. Erez's academic background is in business and project management. Note that there will be a brief Q&A session with today's guest moderator, Mark Francis, following Erez's presentation. Over to you, Erez.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to present VVT to you all. Okay, our mission statement at VVT Medical is to become the new standard of care in vein treatments by introducing really novel solutions for both the aesthetic and the medical indications. A recap about the VVT Medical: it's an Israeli-based and operated biotechnology company. It is already CE approved, and we're awaiting our 510K for the ScleroSafe later this year. The company was invested already with $14 million. $1 million of them was by the founder, which is still an active director in the company. We have two commercial available platforms. One of them is called the ScleroSafe and the other called V-Block. More than 1,000 procedures already sold. We have a very strong IP portfolio, and we have more than $50 million in distribution agreements for the next 5 years. The problem we're facing is really something that 40 million if in the US suffer from it alone. In India, 10 million new cases are added each year, and it really hurts something about like 30% of the general population. From the age 50 and above, 1 out of the 2 women will suffer from it, and 1 out of the 3 men. They all have a condition called either varicose veins or chronic venous insufficiency. It has both medical and aesthetic expressions, and the current methods are limited, painful, and could include complications and could be very time-consuming. So the problem itself, without going too much of the details, you can see in the middle picture how a normal vein should function. We have valves in our veins that help the blood to go upflow from the legs up towards the heart. When those valves become incompetent and they don't function well, blood goes downstream and gets accumulated in the lower extremities, making the veins to become large, swollen, and twisted. And it can cause a lot of problems down the line. What VVT did is really differentiated itself with a very good solution. We really perfected minimal invasive by creating a non-thermal, non-tumescent approach to simply and quickly eliminate varicose veins. We deliver immediate results with a long-term effect, and our solution addresses both the medical field and the aesthetic market. You can see on the left the V-Block, which is mainly for the medical indications, and on the right the ScleroSafe, which is mainly for the aesthetic indications. The ScleroSafe is very unique in the market. There is no competitors, and a lot of the big companies are looking into this technology because they understand this is something that's new and no one else has it. Our value proposition is very superior to other solutions existing in the market because we do not require any anesthesia. There is no pain involved in the process. It's a shorter process than others. Minimal learning curve. We have no known complications, and there is minimal to zero recurrences. Our procedure is cheaper than other NTNT solutions or non-thermal, non-tumescent procedures. It's very short and without any recovery time. Other techniques really cannot be performed in all the seasons of the year, especially the summer, because people don't want to be with bandages on their legs. And our procedure only requires 3 days in comparison to 5 to 8 weeks with other treatments. And we can produce more procedures per day, and our turnover at the clinic is much faster. So just to give you a sense of how the procedure looks, this is a real clinic at Warsaw in Poland with one of our doctors. Both the doctor and the patient gave their consent for these pictures. So the patient enters to the clinic. The doctor sits with the patient and explains how the procedure will look like. He's examining the legs. You can see he's doing it in standing up because that way gravity is really emphasizing the problem. The doctor really identifies the veins that could be faulty. He's doing an ultrasonography to detect what we call the reflux syndrome, where blood goes downstream instead of upstream. He's marking the veins that he wants to treat. The patient sits on the bed, again, without any anesthesia, any pain involved. He's explaining to her, holding our device, how the procedure will take place. And you can see here the kit you have is our ScleroSafe kit that has everything that you need besides the sclerosant, the material that goes into the vein and creates the chemical ablation that occludes the vein completely without any pain. So everything in that kit. We get a lot of good feedback from nursing staff and doctors on how well the kit is organized. And the results are, as we said, immediate and very effective. We call it a lunch break procedure, where a patient can come to the clinic during the lunch break, talk to the doctor for 2-3 minutes, sit on the bed, do the procedure, go back to work or to the family, and basically it's something that's done very fast, very effectively with no pain at all. This is basically the company timeline. Things weren't easy at the beginning, and we needed a lot of time to really finish our clinical aspects, to create another innovation, to create another platform of product, to go in a second development phase, to do all the regulation phase. And right now, with the COVID, we entered our commercialization stage, which was not, let's say it was challenging to do that during COVID. But right now, as I mentioned, we are really in phase of commercialization with contracts signing and registration phases in different countries and regions, and things progressing well. On our pipeline, this year we're also going to introduce hand rejuvenation indications. That's for the aesthetic market. In a couple of words, women really doing a great job in camouflaging the age on their faces. The next area where they see the actual age is the hands. Some of the fat tissue with time reduced and the vein becomes more bulging, and they want to treat that, and our ScleroSafe platform is really ready for that. We talked to a bunch of plastic surgeons and dermatologists, and they really saw this procedure as a great new source of income for them. So this is something that we're working on. By 2024, we will have ulcer bed indications with anterior and retrograde approach to treat ulcers. As I mentioned before, we already have studies publishing with our solution, but we will have FDA clearance for that specific indication. We also want to develop a spider vein elimination solution. Spider vein is a very shallow, like spider web veins that could be treated non-invasively over the skin. This is also something we work about. And a retrievable V-Block, which is a solution, let's say a next generation development of our V-Block that would be much more faster, the already faster procedure that we do today. So that's our pipeline products. Thank you very much. That was my presentation. I'll be happy to receive any questions and answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Erez. That, exciting technology. You're working on the 510K with the FDA. The FDA is a pain point for a lot of companies. Talk to me a little more about that.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Mark. It is a long process that we're having the dance with them for the last 2 years. With the pre-submission meetings that we already had with them, they accepted our clinical data. They wanted us to do another small test that we already completed last December. And right now we are in the final submission stages. And we hope to submit it and receive their 510K by September this year.
Very good. Now, in order to succeed economically, there have to be economics for the entire chain, including the salespeople, the channel partners. And you've talked about having distribution agreements, and even company management. When you break it down, company management costs capital and money, and it has to have a return. Can you talk about your projected profit margin and how it might be divided up?
Yeah, indeed, we're working on that. As you mentioned, we have already 54 million in contracts. Our margin based on those numbers are somewhere at the 70% margins. And we are having a very lean management because we are managing distributors worldwide, and they're doing all the work on site. We give support on the logistics, marketing, and the general sales aids. Other than that, we're trying to keep it very, very minimal.
So you think the distributors will have sufficient profit margin as well out of that?
Sure, yeah. All of our agreements are based on market research that they did. The way I do business is that I let them decide what the numbers in terms of quantities that they can sell and in which price, because I believe that needs to be a win-win for both. So once we know that our pricing, and we had some negotiations over pricing with our distributors, but we came to an agreement that our pricing can serve both their business and ours. So we are very confident in that.
Very good. So tell us about a mistake you've made in the past and what you did to rectify it.
I think one of the mistakes we did is that we went with the FDA with only one of our products, excluding the other one, and that really made us do, let's say, do double the work. It really doubled our work with the FDA. Also in terms of cost, because it's not cheap. So we needed to really rectify that by pushing both products and divide let's say, our resources in a way that we push both of them in a way that we will get the first approval for the ScleroSafe, but we already did pre-submission meetings for the second product. And once we'll have sufficient funds, we can not start from the beginning, but to continue from the last stage that we did. And that way we will achieve our FDA clearance faster, rather than wait till one procedure will be finished and start another one from scratch. So,
okay, so you identified a mistake and you moved to repair it. So that's good. Yeah. Going forward, you're going to have a training issue, I would think. You're using distributors,
yes,
but you are the company experts, you're the procedure experts, and you're going to end up with a very large database, presumably, of outcomes and challenges that have happened. So how are you going to deal with the training aspect for all the new clinics and medical offices that are going to be using it?
Very true. This is basically what we suffered during the COVID period. We really were able to push on the commercial stage at 2020, but because of COVID, we couldn't really beside of the fact that no one was doing those treatments because it's not life-saving treatments, so we couldn't succeed in ramping up and do more on the commercial side. Training was one of the issues because we can't really train doctors that aren't working or patients that aren't coming. But right now, it's also a constraint. What we did is that, and we continue to do so, we created Center of Excellences in the regions that we are doing agreements with. For example, we have 2 Center of Excellence in Germany, and those doctors also working with other countries. For example, we are sending, beginning of June, we're sending one of the German doctors to India to train local doctors there. We built an online training or e-learning, it's called, module. Back at my days at Johnson & Johnson, I did that the same way because we needed to train a lot of people globally. So we did that for the theoretical part, but there is no way to replace the actual participating in procedure with the doctor. So right now, as COVID hopefully slowly and surely leaving us, we can invest more in that. So we have few doctors, but it's not enough. We need to train more doctors and to have them to be as trained to do more train the trainer sessions, and they will do more of the local training themselves. That's our ways to overcome the training.
Okay. Very good. It's going to require more capital. Are you looking to do a raise? And if so, how large a raise?
We are looking to do a raise. We're trying to raise 7 million Canadian dollars. That will help us to invest in the awareness raise that we need for our products, training the end users, and really push through some of the markets that we see a lot of potential in.
Very good. So in closing, let's tell the viewers what your biggest business challenge is going forward.
To tell you the truth, I think it's a problem not only VVT is looking at. I think it's a global issue, but we see it because we have already contracts signed, and the global problem of sourcing raw materials is something that we are trying to overcome right now. Because we have so much orders coming our way with all the agreements that we sign, we will need to ramp up our production in a way that we need to find more, second sources from a lot of our suppliers, and we need to ramp up. And this is something we're trying to work with our biggest ones. So we're producing larger orders in order to have much more raw materials and really to gear up to the mass production that we are already committed to. Because when a distributor is committing to you on a minimum order quantity, it's also a commitment on your side to deliver it. So that's something that we are right now facing as a global challenge, but also here in VVT, we are facing that and trying to find ways to overcome that.
Very good. Thank you very much. We've had Erez Tetro, CEO of VVT Medical, an exciting company going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erez and Mark. For our next speaker, let me welcome Mr. Joe Brennan, President and CEO of Innovative Trauma Care. Mr. Brennan is an accomplished leader with over 2 decades of experience, previously serving in management positions with Genzyme Corporation and Kinetic Concepts, Inc. He also founded sales consulting firm Red Zone Leadership. While at Genzyme, he grew the biosurgical division's commercial sales from 10 million to over 100 million and supervised multiple diverse teams through his 17-year tenure. In his position with KCI, he achieved year-to-year commercial growth for product lines in the skin substitute and wound care space. He's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy and served in Operation Desert Storm as a division officer on the USS Frederick, as well as worked with the Chief of Naval Operations in the Foreign Liaison Office. He has an MBA from the Guizetta Business School at Emory University. Over to you, Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe Brennan. I'm the CEO of Innovative Trauma Care. We are a hemorrhage control device. We've been around for a while, and I'd like to tell you the latest about the company. Our primary focus for years has been the military because they are the #1 component of pre-hospital trauma care. So the problem with hemorrhage control and pre-hospital is, what is available to use? What can someone use on themselves? What can someone's buddy use? What can someone use in a mass casualty shooting or an active shooter scenario? And the IT clamp, we have a solution for that. There are a number of different devices. There are tourniquets. There are different gauzes. Ours is very unique in that it's extremely small, lightweight, and very easy to use. So basically all you do is take it out of the sterile packaging, open the device, place it over the wound, and close the device. And there is a watertight seal of the device, so a hematoma forms underneath, and the back pressure will stop the bleeding. So as I said, it's easy to use, it's extremely fast, lightweight, it's inexpensive. It's currently manufactured in the US. We have over 29 studies on the product. It's been approved by the U.S. military through TCCC, which is a Tactical Combat Casualty Care. It's the only device approved for neck and scalp, and it can be used on any compressible part of the body. Obviously, it can be used globally, not just through militaries, also civilian utilization, and basically anywhere in the world can use it. Just with the size of the U.S. military, you could use $91 million worth of product just to seed the military. And then estimates are up to 50% a year due to usage, training, lost devices, things like that. Again, this is showing different areas of utilization. Again, neck, face, and scalp, it's the only product approved. Can be used in the junctional areas, meaning the axilla and the groin, legs, arms, anywhere on the body except the chest and abdomen, because there would be no back pressure to stop the bleeding. It could prevent you from bleeding externally, but not internally. I talked about a little bit, and this is a Syrian blast victim in the lower right-hand corner in that picture. It was used by a Navy SEAL team, took the picture and forwarded it to us. But this is the biggest hurdle we had to face. It took us 4 years to get approval. It's extremely hard and political process to get it through, and it had been our driving force for years, and we got approved just before COVID. So in the U.S. Army, Special Forces use it. So Delta, which is also known as the unit, the SOAR, which is a Special Operations Aviation Regiment of Black Hawk Down fame. The Rangers use it. Also, some of the big Army is starting to train on it. In the U.S. Navy, it's used by the SEALs, the Marine Corps, the Raiders use it, and Air Force pararescuemen use it. So now they've used it. They like it. They just don't really publicize how much they like it. And it doesn't necessarily slide over to the conventional forces, but that's what we're working on. And we're going to a non-exclusive distribution model. We had used one distributor, and we find it better to spread the message some. So with the recent events in Ukraine, we recently sent 2,400 units over. We're trying to track it to see where it gets utilized. That's one of the biggest problems is you can get it to Poland, but how do you make sure it goes in the right place? So we're doing a manufacturing run now, raising donations or looking for donations to send another amount over. So we have two different options to send them through. Muller Group International, gentleman I know well, Jeff Muller, retired FBI agent. He has spent time in Ukraine running logistics, and the Mozart Group is a private group of ex-military run by a Marine colonel that I've communicated with on WhatsApp, and he's right in the middle of the fighting, and he's like, please send them, we can use them, and then we'll try and get pictures to bring up awareness, but also it's a life-saving device. So we recently trained the U.S. FBI's hostage rescue team. It's a preeminent organization in the U.S. So looking to get their feedback. Los Angeles County Fire, we're working with them. Turkey signed a contract for 100,000 units per year, but COVID has delayed that. In India, we're trialing with their special forces, and they have over a million people in their military, and they lose 15 to 20,000 a year just in training accidents. So it has an application without even combat for them. So we manufacture at MedBio in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Our cost is $15.19 to manufacture the unit. So our margin is 56%. We sell at a transfer price to distribution at $35. But if this product was direct, it would have a 67% margin. There's other economies of scale also to lower that. We use a distribution partner, and they do customer service. So they take calls, they take orders, they warehouse the product, they ship the product, and they bill the product for us, and we pay them 7% on average. It slides on how much we sell each year. We are looking for media coverage to really help us expand our footprint, and we do, like I said, have over 29 articles, several of them peer-reviewed. Just revenue growth. Last year we sold 350. This year we're looking to sell 750. With this order potentially going to Ukraine, we'll be at 600,000 for the year. We look to get to 6 million and then 20 million just through more of an aggressive commercial push. So we're raising 2.5 million. The final terms are being reviewed by the board. What we're going to do is build some stock. We've been just trying to play catch up with our orders. We could put on much more of a commercial push when we have product and we have the ability to get out there. And we'll really utilize remote training. So many people use YouTube in different ways to learn things. Our device is very easy to use. The challenge is most people aren't aware of it. So with no awareness, they're not going to use it. So that's another big focus for us. So we've done a lot of the heavy lifting. We got through TCCC. We've published. We know there's a need and we know it works. Military adoption picking up. We're really going to work on police and fire in the U.S. And then Ukraine is a unfortunate event, but we're trying to get our device utilized to save people's lives and then also get the word out on our product. Thank you very much.
And finally, for our final speaker of the day, please let me introduce you to Mr. Yotam Levin, CEO of NanoPass Technologies. Since 2002, he has been in charge of the company's strategy, business development, and all clinical activities. Under his supervision, the company successfully licensed his product with the FDA and the EU and conducted dozens of pioneering intradermal vaccination studies. Dr. Levin holds an MD degree and an MBA, both from Tel Aviv University. Dr. Levin authored and is a frequent reviewer of several key publications in leading journals, such as The Lancet ID and Vaccine, and authored 24 patent filings. Recently, he was a medical advisor to the National COVID Vaccine Program at the Israeli Institute of Biological Research. In his spare time, he runs marathons, teaches biomedical entrepreneurship, and volunteers with disabled children and PO. Stay tuned after Yotam's presentation for your Q&A session with CSE's own Mark Francis. Now over to you, Yotam.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Yotam. I'm the CEO of NanoPass and have been for many years. I'm a medical doctor by background, also have an MBA, both from Tel Aviv University. NanoPass is based in Israel. Our vision is to bring breakthrough solutions for painless injection and more effective delivery of both vaccines and aesthetics. The COVID pandemic has taught us many important lessons, one of which is that it's not a matter of vaccine companies anymore to work through developing vaccines and distribute vaccines. It's actually a matter of the global economy, a matter of society. And this means that governments are now in charge of pandemic preparedness, and they not only approve vaccines, they also purchase vaccines, but not less important, they distribute vaccines. And this is where we fit in. COVID vaccine has given us 21st century vaccines, mRNA and others, but we're still working with conventional 19th century administration, syringes and needles. So we imagine a world where getting vaccinated, including COVID vaccines, is painless. We also use our technology, which is an intradermal into the skin injection technology for other products. For example, we are developing products for anti-aging and intradermal delivery of aesthetics. We also are developing products for the cosmetic space, and I'll share with you in a minute. Our device, you can see it on the left-hand side, is an FDA-cleared device, which is also registered in most major markets, including Europe, China, Brazil, and many other countries. It provides delivery of any product that is approved for delivery into the skin. We are needleless. Our microinjection system is painless, shown to be safe, efficacious, and consistent in delivery. Importantly, we've conducted over 60 clinical studies, 60, primarily in vaccines. And in those studies, we've been able to show that we can deliver vaccines into the skin as opposed to into the muscle. And by this, we improve the efficacy of vaccines. And the reason is that the skin is a very strong immune organ, has a very strong immunity, and delivering the product or the vaccine directly into the skin allows to improve the response or to dramatically reduce the dose. We've shown this for COVID recently, using 1 in the 15th of the dose or 7% of the dose of a vaccine for an equivalent response. We've shown it in flu, pandemic, and seasonal, and many other vaccines. We've done this alone, and we've done it with big pharma as well as with NIH and CDC. So we've proven that it is more effective using lesser dose, and conversely, if you use the same dose, you can improve the immune responses. And we've shown this, for example, for zoster vaccines together with Merck. Obviously, global vaccine markets are tremendous. Even before COVID, it was a multi-billion-dollar market. 2022 is a year that COVID vaccines will sell for about $50 billion. Obviously, we are now in clinical studies with COVID vaccine makers to show that our technology is both safe and effective and allows to reduce the dose of vaccine, possibly also to reduce side effects of the vaccine by using lesser dose. So we may get less fever, less side effects, and so forth. Very important for vaccine hesitancy and vaccine compliance. And so obviously the COVID vaccine market is a tremendous market. We also operate in other markets in the vaccine space and also in the aesthetics space. Okay, I've discussed this. The benefits of aesthetics and cosmetics are obviously different. And the reason we commercialized in that area is that it's a private pay market. It's also a market that appreciates painlessness as opposed to medical markets. And it's a market that is not as highly regulated. It means you don't need as many clinical studies, phase 1, 2, 3, in order to get your products approved. You need much less because the products are generic and are very similar one to the other. And they are actually regulated as devices, medical devices. Those injectables are sometimes regulated as medical devices. And so the burden of regulatory proof and the clinical burden is significantly less important than they are in the vaccine space. Huge market. No need to spend too much time on this. Facial injectables is a highly growing market, 14% compounded growth, getting to be a $20 billion market. The cosmetics skincare market is also a multi-billion-dollar market, $100 billion, with some growth. And we are working with some of the largest companies in both areas, top 3, top 5 companies in the medical aesthetic space as well as in the cosmetic space, to provide devices for painless delivery and more effective injection than any cream you would use or any needle you might use for medical aesthetics. Milestone depiction of the company and its development. We've done our first trials quite many years ago. We've received our FDA clearance and the CE Europe approval in 2010. We've gone through full automation, assembly, and scale-up engineering of our product and started commercial sales in 2018, 2019. We expanded from vaccines to aesthetics in 2019, 2020, and we're now in the process of expanding further into additional applications, additional products to be injected, additional markets, as well as obviously a lot of work in the COVID vaccine space also to demonstrate efficacy and safety for COVID vaccine companies. Here are some of the benchmarks and some comparables for the company. We eventually have a vision to develop drug-device combinations using our platform technology and our clinical know-how. And we show here some examples of drug-device companies, some sold in the billions, others sold or at least selling or valued at hundreds of millions, depending on the product, depending on the market. But nevertheless, these are very significant numbers and very significant examples of companies active in our space. Last but not least, and I'll finish with this, we are doing a joint development effort with a leading US technology provider for the US government. This has not been widely published, so we cannot say too much about it, but we can say that we are developing a self-administered vaccine device or kit for DoD for COVID vaccines and potentially other pandemic vaccines to allow people to be self-administered in a pandemic scenario, in a pandemic campaign, and to allow us to eliminate the use of healthcare providers, which are a major bottleneck in cost, but also eliminate the need for vials, for syringes, and for needles using this kit. And our technology is the skin in the face technology of that product. And I would like to finish with this, and thank you for your time.
Glad to be back doing the Q&A for Tech Tuesday. And first of all, note my disclaimer. I'm a long-standing shareholder of Innovative Trauma Care. Good presentations, Joe and Yotam. And so my first question is the humbler. You have each been at this for quite a while. Tell us about a mistake in the past and what you did to rectify it. Let's go with Joe and then Yotam.
Early on, we put too much of a commercial push on before we had market acceptance. So we had direct sales force. We had numbers that were not really achievable, obviously, in retrospect. So what we did is we really pulled back and tried to get more recognition and more approval. So we went to the U.S. military, seeded the special forces to get them to use it, and worked our way through their approval process, which is the Tactical Combat Casualty Care, TCCC. So we had to scale down the organization. We couldn't go out on a force, direct force commercialization plan. So now we're getting back to the place where we can do that because we do have that approved.
Thank you for the question. It's a great question. I tend to say that I make 10 mistakes a day, if not 100 mistakes a day, not 10 in a decade or so. But we at least hope to be learning from our mistakes and improving from our mistakes and others as well. One thing that comes up is perhaps design for industrialization or design for manufacturability. When we started off with the device, we developed an R&D device. It worked well in the clinic and people liked it, but we did not put enough emphasis and enough investment into making sure that when we need to make millions and millions of that device, we would be able to do so efficiently with very high yield and very low cost. And it seems, kind of obviously it's an obvious remark, but when you think about a Botox treatment of $500 or $1,000, you don't think about a device that would cost $2 to $5. It doesn't seem much, but the difference is tremendous in terms of your ability to penetrate and the margins that go into the supply chain and so on and so forth. You need to design for cost and you need to design for automation from the outset. And what we had to do, as I've shown the timeline openly, go through a lot of scale-up exercises to improve our yield and reduce our costs. And we continue to invest, by the way, part of the money that we're raising now is continue to invest in CapEx, in automation, in yield improvement, and in cost reduction to get our elasticity curve to where it needs to be while maintaining our high margin such that we can market a useful device, both from the medical side of it as well as from the economics.
Both insightful responses. And I would point out to the listeners that each of you, along with VVT, who presented earlier, have an excellent board of directors and advisory boards. So it's not as if you had a bunch of beginners around the table, and it shows that even pros have to go back and think about it again. So let's talk about approvals. Do each of you have approval in all of your major markets, or are there a couple of markets where you're still going to be working to get approval? Yotam and then Joe.
So as I said earlier, we are approved in most major markets. We are working on a couple of them now, Japan, India included. It's not a major feat for us. We can do it, and we've done it in very complex territories. But one thing is getting the device approved and commercial for some applications, which are obvious, like the aesthetic space. Getting them approved for specific vaccines is a much larger challenge because it implies clinical development and the registration of the vaccine itself. This by itself is one of the most important challenges that NanoPass is facing. Not on its own, anyone working on the intradermal space for vaccines is in the same trench here. But this is to say it's a long-term process that we need to continue to work on, demonstrate clinical results, show the benefits and superiority, and so on and so forth. It's an ongoing effort.
And with us, we've had FDA approval and CE approval in Europe for quite some time. We have had Health Canada approval. As we go into other jurisdictions where we don't have approval, it's usually through their local militaries, which have exemptions, and then we'll look to get approval. But with the approvals we have, similar to what Yotam said, it's just going through the process. We have all the clinical information we need. So it hasn't been a major concern of ours to this point.
Okay, good. Now, Yotam has raised manufacturing, and Joe, in your presentation, you commented on it. Joe, will you engage in manufacturing in a place such as India or South Korea in order to serve the Asian market? And Yotam, where is your nanoneedle manufactured at this point in time?
So we would consider India or South Korea. We're hoping to get to the point where we need redundant manufacturing and need manufacturing in that geography of the world. And with our work with the Indian military, hopefully we'll be able to ramp that up sooner rather than later.
We are producing in South Korea and in Israel, and we are looking for additional locations, particularly closer to where COVID vaccine makers are. And we are entertaining discussions strategically in the US, although there might be other markets. You mentioned India, and China is obviously very interested. So there might be other markets for a larger scale production, but I think the most important one remains the US. And there's a big trend, obviously you both are very much aware of it, to bring in production locally, not just in the US, obviously a big part of warp speed, but it's true for many, many governments. I started off with COVID being a government play, not just a vaccine play. And so many governments have realized the complexity of supply chains and cargo and other things, components and other things nowadays. And they incentivize companies like ours to bring in production locally, closer to the market, closer to the stockpile, and so on and so forth. Not just DoD particularly, but others as well, because of the importance of this in situations such as COVID.
Good. Now, you've each talked a little bit as well about pricing and economics. And as we know, in order to succeed, there have to be economics for the entire chain, sales, channel partners, and even company management. You know, it's a cost, and the company, there has to be a profit on all of your cost centers. So talk a bit more about your projected margin and how it might be divided up, Yotam and then Joe.
Well, it wouldn't be a secret that we're trying to keep above 50% gross margins. In some cases, we're luckier, actually, because in some of the projects, we're working under license agreements and eventually would earn royalties off of the products and not even produce them, getting our margins theoretically to 100 and maybe 90% or so, depending on the support that we need to provide. So hopefully we want to remain high on the margins, but the story is obviously always more complicated. And as I hinted before, we would like to work on production capacity and cost reduction in order to not just maintain the margins, but also make sure that we provide end unit prices that are affordable to as many customers and in many markets and indications that we operate in. And so it's a bigger play. The theory is easy. Implementing the theory is not as easy and requires funding. This is why we're here.
And with the IT clamp, so our current Gross margin is 56%. If the product was direct, like if we were bought by a larger company that had an existing commercial channel, it would be 67%. So that's in the realm of the area they're looking for. Our cost of materials have gone up and the labor costs have gone up. So what we'll have to do is really work on automating the manufacturing capability, and there are areas to do that. We would love to get the COGS down, but at this point we, like to keep them even as well, so they don't go up at all to get into the margin. But also on approval, people have been raising prices, so we have that opportunity as well. So we feel comfortable with the gross margin and, working on getting it to go up as we increase revenue and units.
I'd also like to mention that in our second generation devices, we work directly with big aesthetic companies, top 5 companies, not with distributors. And this reduces the amount of the number of arms or the number of distributors in the chain to allow us to appreciate better margins in the second generation devices. Now that the product is commercial and more people appreciate the use of it and the benefit it provides, it gets easier in this respect of, shrinking the supply chain and the number of arms within that chain would help.
Thank you. Good point, Yotam. And Joe, a very good point you've made about the inflationary pressures. And I suspect that after decades, in fact, of price stability, we're all going to have to be scrambling a little bit on contracts and how we phrase long-term contracts, because the transitory inflation seems to, at this point, be less than transitory. So each of you have talked a little bit about capital. Let's be more explicit. How critical is a capital raise to accelerate your success, and what are your plans? Will it entail a broader offering, or are you looking at simply or are you looking at a placement with a VC exclusively? And let's go with Joe and then Yotam.
Yeah, we are not looking with a VC exclusively. We have obviously had a fair amount of VC backing with our lead investor, and they continue to be very active on the board. So what we're looking to do now is raise the money for safety stock. We're always trying to catch up to orders. We came off back order, and then the next day we sent 2,400 units to Ukraine. So that puts us back. So build up safety stock, more of a commercial push, and also training materials. I talk about our devices very easy, but people aren't familiar with it. So we need better tools. The great thing is with YouTube and other platforms, it's easier for people to view training. And literally, when I tell you I could spend 2 minutes with you and you'd know how to use it and be comfortable using it. So, a tourniquet, everyone knows what it is, but it's extremely hard to use. When you need a tourniquet, you have to have it. Our device is easy to use, but people aren't familiar with it. So we need to work up tools. And people talk about active shooter kits. They're starting to put medical device, because first responders are often the people there. So they're talking about running continuous videos above those so people can see products, not just the IT clamp, but all the products in the first aid bag. So that's what we'll use the money for.
So we'll be investing in CapEx to reduce costs and improve scale. We also need to strengthen our marketing and sales effort, expand our distributorship markets, and so on for the current device. We are developing, as I mentioned, a couple of next generation devices on the R&D side, which would go into the clinic 22, 23 and launch 2024. And for that, we need to focus on R&D as well. And last but not least, very close to my heart, is showing clinical proof and evidence that the device works to improve COVID vaccines. And we may need to invest a bit in this as well to engage with big pharma and governments. And so there's plenty of work for a small company across the board, from R&D to clinical development to marketing and sales. But we know where we're heading, and we have a plan for it.
Very good. And here comes the closing. What is your biggest challenge going forward, Yotam and Joe?
So our biggest, which I've mentioned several times, is just market awareness. There's a need, our product works, and it's easy to use and lightweight and affordable. Just getting the word out there and getting, all the information out to the potential end users. And we'll do that through continued military push, hopefully more media coverage, and then working with different police and fire organizations as well.
Well, for us, there are a couple. The first of which, in the vaccine space, it's engaging with pharma and getting them to endorse the clinical benefit of our device for improving vaccines. Although it has been proven time and again, there's obviously a lot of work to do on each new vaccine that comes out. On the aesthetic sides and the commercial sides, it's only about execution. We have no clinical risk there, no regulatory risk. We only need to execute, improve our marketing and sales, and expand markets and indications. So it's more about execution on that side.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Yotam Levin, NanoPass Technologies, Joe Brennan, Innovative Trauma Care, and earlier we had Erez Tetro of VVT Medical. May you have excellent presentations all, and may you have continued success in building your business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thanks again, gentlemen, for an outstanding presentation today. And thank you to all the people who have worked behind the scenes on Tech Tuesday, including Anil Mall, Barrington Miller, Melissa Robertson, and of course, today's moderator, Mark Francis. Lastly, thank you to our attendees for taking a slice out of your day to learn and support the companies on Tech Tuesday. Go to the company websites to learn more about them and their projects. If you have a lead for them, please do connect. Next Tuesday, we will be bringing you another company showcase that you won't want to miss. And please hit that like and subscribe button wherever you may be watching today. If you have missed any previous editions of Tech Tuesday, don't hesitate to visit CSE TV on YouTube. We have a healthy backlog of shows for your viewing and educational benefit. Finally, this has been a proud presentation of the Canadian Securities Exchange. For more information about the exchange, its listed companies, and for trading data, look no further than www.thecse.com. Thanks again for watching, and may you have continued success in expanding your businesses.